I got you, Joey D.
All right. Well, I appreciate all of you coming again. I've actually got family here from Georgia, kind of a surprise visit. I didn't think they were coming to midweek, but my son Chris is here, my grandson, Mr. Keith. So I appreciate them coming. And all of you guys, I know we got some first timers, and you're always welcome back. We do this the last Monday of every month, except December. And I've got a quick story I meant to share with you earlier this year, but I hadn't found the right spot to put it, but it's a little bit of a Christmas story. There was a elderly couple just a day or two before Christmas that just couldn't live together anymore, and they were retired down in Florida, but they just decided marriage wasn't for them, and they were going to get a divorce. So the husband decided he better call his kids and inform them, so he called the son who lived in Chicago, told him about it, and he said, Dad, y'all been married 50 years. You can't get a divorce. He said, well, we just can't live together. All of a sudden, things have gone south. He said, now, I'm going to call my sister and talk to her, but you don't do nothing until we call you back, okay? He said, well, another day ain't hurt nothing, whatever. So he calls the sister, informs her of it, and she says the same thing. Look, they've been married 50 years, and there ain't no way they can divorce. And he said, well, that's what he's telling me, and they just can't stand one another. They're splitting. She said, well, you go down and buy a plane ticket and fly down there tomorrow. I'm going to go down and buy a plane ticket. We'll both go down, and we'll talk some sense into their heads because they can't get a divorce. He said, good idea. I'll call Dad and tell him to hold up till we get there. So he did, called his dad, said, Dad, look, me and Julie coming tomorrow. She's flying out of California. I'm flying out of Chicago. We're going to be there tomorrow. Sit down with you and Mom, talk it through, and see that y'all don't divorce because 50 years, you just can't throw that away. He said, well, son, I think you're wasting your time, but if that's what you got to do, he said, I'm sorry to bring this on you right here the week before Christmas, but that's just how things happen. He said, well, that's what, we'll be there tomorrow. So he did, hung up the phone, turned around and told his wife. He said, your plan worked. They're coming home for Christmas. He said, this year, they're buying their own plane ticket. You don't mess with us old folks. I don't know if you got an email. I forgot. I called my wife. She sent it probably 5 o'clock. And she didn't know what I was talking about, so that's not in it. But if I'd have sent you an email, I was going to tell you we're going to talk about move. Might be just me, but I hear the most people talk about things, and I guess church is maybe the worst one of an example. But we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Well, next month we're going to do this, and the next month we're going to do this, and we never do this. We just talk about it. And I know we have committees and we make plans, but we seem to never fulfill the plan. And we need a plan, I understand, but if you don't put a plan into action, it's never really nothing more than a good theory. Until it's tested, the plan won't work. The Bible says faith without works is dead. Faith is a good plan, but it takes work to keep it alive. Work's a movement. It makes things move. It makes things come together. And without works, everything's dead. And there seems to be I don't know, it might be just me, like I said. Could be that I'm dealing with the DOT almost every day now because we've been in the middle of a mud hole for about 5 years, or a dust bowl. And just got informed that the ditch was wrong. They're going to dig that up again. So that's what I'm talking about. It's talk, and never, ever does anything get completed. And that might be what's got me thinking, but it could be just me or it could be a fact. I think God expects us to move. I don't think he expects us to sit still. The Bible's loaded with stories that are all good. They're all relative to what we do today. But I'll give you a couple of 3 examples. The prodigal son came to himself, but he had to move to come back home. The woman with the flow of blood crawled up to Jesus to touch his garment. She had to move to get healed. David gathered stones and went up to fight Goliath. He had to move from the sheep to the giant. All that story wouldn't have happened without some movement. All of God's miracles required men to move. I think miracles and blessings could be considered collaborative. God can make a miracle, absolutely. I don't question God's ability. But it seems like he always expects men to step up and do part of it. If I pray for a new job and never go out and apply for a job, I probably ain't going to get a new job. Just going to sit and wait and not move, and that nothing will ever happen. So it is a collaborative system that God's put before us for us to be aware of. And I know some of you thinking that redneck don't know what collaborative means, and you're pretty well right. But I break words down, and the first two letters is combination or coming together. The Bible talks about coming together in one accord. I think the first part of that means to come together in unison with one accord. The second part of that word is laborative. Now, I don't think that's a word at all, but I noticed the first 5 letters of that was labor. I know about labor. Don't think it means anything, but and labor means to work together to make something happen. But you've got to move for that to work. You might say again, God don't need you to do a miracle, and I agree. I agree 100%. But in Mark 6, verse 5, it reads, he could do no mighty works there except to heal a few sick people because of their unbelief. The people of Nazareth, because Jesus was from Nazareth, didn't have confidence that he could do any miracles. Even Nathanael, who said, does anything good ever come out of Nazareth? Because of their non-belief, he could do no mighty works. We can prevent Jesus and God from working according to that verse there. So I think he expects us to be a part of it. Ask yourself, why do people just sit and not move? Why do they just talk about it and not do things? Sometimes it takes something to make you move. If you're comfortable, you may have no reason to move. If you're fat and happy sitting and nothing's wrong, no hardships, no trials, no famines, no reason, you're happy. Jacob, the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, very wealthy, very blessed man of God, very smart, highly intelligent, had a comfortable lifestyle. Canaan, his homeland, however, was in a famine. There was no food in Canaan. They were going to starve. Had he not have moved, this whole story would have ended. A famine can be food. It can be a lack of happiness. It can be a famine of jobs. It can be famine through your family. There's all kinds of famine. Any kind of hardship can be kind of looked at as a famine. But notice he didn't just sit and feel sorry for himself. He gathered 10 of his sons together. He had heard there was grain in Egypt. He had money. He had plenty of money, but he had no food. Egypt had food. He needed food. So he sent the boys to Egypt to buy food. Now, a couple lessons there that stuck out. First one is don't hate on people that have, even if you're lacking. It's probably not their fault that you're lacking. The second lesson there is don't sit in misery thinking, woe is me if you're lacking. Move, make something happen, and do something about it. He had money. Money is the answer to all things. Y'all believe that? I see a lot of no's. Ecclesiastes 10:19. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money is the answer to all things. That's in the good book. Now, here's the point. Money is the answer to all things. Not happiness, not love, things. Tangible stuff you can touch and feel you can buy. You cannot buy happiness. You cannot buy love and stuff like that. Anything you can buy, tangible, money can buy, but you got to touch it. So Jacob had sent 10 of his sons, as I said, to Egypt with money to buy grain. He didn't send them begging. He sent them to do business. Sometimes I think the church has gotten a little slack on doing business. We sit back hoping God will take care of everything, and we have forgot how to do business. I don't know if Wesley's here tonight, but I hope not. He had some door hangers he and I have been talking about to go out and put on doors. He said he printed 300 of them. We had almost 300 people at church yesterday. He said he hoped there was not one left on the table when we left yesterday. I came back yesterday afternoon to get ready for tonight. There's a whole stack of them left. We got to do business. We got to get out and invite people to church. It will shrink down to what you consider to be a famine, if not. Next question I had was, why didn't he send all his sons? I just told you he had 12 sons. He only sent 10. If you remember earlier, he had sent Joseph out to check on the 10 older brothers that were tending the sheep. Joseph didn't come back. You know the story of how they were going to kill him. They threw him in a pit, ended up selling him into slavery. It's what got this whole story going. Well, they wanted him to send Benjamin also. Well, Jacob ain't turning Benjamin loose. He's the last thought, the last thing he got from Rachel. Rachel was the love of his life. The last 2 kids were born. She was actually barren, but God opened her womb and gave her 2 kids, Joseph and Benjamin. He's lost Joseph, assumed he's dead. He ain't sending Benjamin. He's holding on for dear life. Will not. He'd probably sit through a famine and starve before he would turn loose of Benjamin. Here's another lesson. Sometimes we can hold on to something that we believe to be so precious we can't turn it loose, and it'll keep us from moving. We could actually starve dealing with something that we are hanging on to that is really something we need to put into action and put into work. Remember last month we talked about moving, or month before I think, leaving. The 3 disciples left the 12 to go up on the high mountain to see Jesus transfigure himself. 3 left the 12 to go see the 1. That's what I mean. You can't hold on. They were comfortable at the bottom of the mountain. We live in comfort in this country way, way more than we give it credit for. Sometimes it takes a famine to make you move. Sometimes we just sit very comfortable and not move because of that. And sometimes we're holding on to something that we need to turn loose and move ahead. I see that a lot, especially with elderly people. They think their money's going to run out. They won't live life. They won't take a trip. They won't do anything. And I'm not an old person yet. I'm leaning that way pretty hard, but I find myself quite often thinking, I don't need to do this. I'm fine without doing this. I'll just sit back and pass on something that I really would like to do. But back to the famine. Did you realize if it weren't for the famine, Jacob would never have found Joseph, his son that he loved more than the other sons? He gave him the coat of many colors. If it wasn't for this famine, he would have never found him. But I'm also afraid he had more of a famine than just food. I think his family had a famine. Any kind of famine represents hardships. Here's another example. I think his family had no trust, they had no love, and they had no care. And you might say, really, I don't get that. Even Joseph, in his new role as number 2 man in Egypt, he was 1 behind Pharaoh, never went home to check on his daddy. Don't you think he could have took a day off if he was number 2 man behind Pharaoh to go home and check on the family, to check on his father that he loved and his father loved him? There's some stories underlying here that I don't understand, but that's a big question I had. Why would he not go home and check on Dad if he loved Dad so much? So obviously famines can be more than just lack of food. It can be other hardships. God used the famine to put the family back together, but they still had to move to make it happen. It's just another example of a hardship. But I asked myself, why Joseph? Why did he pick him of 12 kids? Why did God pick Joseph to go through all this? It's a plan. It's God's plan, and if you're going through some hard times, I think you got to realize I got to stop and wait on God to see what's going on here. Think about this. Joseph, number 2 man in Egypt now, had gone through this hardship. He was threatened to be killed by his family. He was thrown in a pit. He was taken out of the pit, sold by his brothers to a band of Ishmaelites, traders. He was jailed by Potiphar for a crime he didn't commit. He was forgotten by his cellmates because he could discern the dreams. He could expand on what the dreams meant. And they knew that. And when they got out, they forgot him and left him in jail. I think the whole story here was God was able to trust Joseph with the blessing. Had he not have been able to trust him with the blessing, how many of us would forgive our brothers if they had sold us into slavery? I think that's a pretty big deal right there. Threatened to kill him, sold him into slavery. He'd gone through this mess with Potiphar and been left in jail to rot. But when he got out, he forgave everybody there so the family could grow back together. Last month, we talked about a lukewarm church. We talked about the church of Laodicea. They needed to move. I didn't put all this together till I started studying this. The Bible tells you they were rich, they were happy, they were healthy, wealthy, they were a place desired by others to visit. They had no famine, no hardship. Therefore, they didn't move. They got stale. They got lukewarm. That's what I'm telling you tonight. We don't need to sit and wait. We need to move and not be stale and lukewarm. I'd ask you tonight, are you in a tough spot? Are you going through a hardship? Just can't seem to catch a break. Maybe God's putting us there so that we can realize there's another side to this thing. But we got to move. We can't feel sorry for ourselves. We've got to put things together and move. One more point that kind of hits pretty hard. Suppose you're in that spot and you're asking God to bless you and get you out. What came to my mind was, I always pray, God help me, God help me, God help me. Get me out of this mess. What if I pray, God give me the knowledge and the ability to get out myself? Yeah, I don't mind moving, but I don't know how. You show me my steps I need to take, and I'm going to move and go through with this, and I'm going to get myself out of this mess with your help. That collaboration I talked about earlier. I begin to close now a little bit, but I've talked about this already. I just think the whole story here is the Bible revealing itself and how awesome that book is and how relative it is to the life today. But without Joseph going through all these hardships, without him being picked by God, it's like I said, if I was in his shape, I don't think I could have forgiven anybody, certainly not my brothers that had sold me into slavery. But through that, through his love of God, through his, I don't even know what you would call it, to be that kind and forgiving, to be able to accept the blessing that God had given him and say, I'm going to forgive everybody. Through all that, this whole family got put back together. The 12 tribes of Israel are the basic roots of the country of Israel. So without that, the whole Bible could have gotten out of whack. The whole story is so important. And the one brother of the 12 was chosen, I believe, because he was the one that God could trust to forgive the rest of them so that the family could grow back together and be one again. I think that's how this Bible is so awesome and how the plans that God's made are laid out there if we can just open our eyes and see them and understand them. So, having said that, I would say again, if you're in a tough spot, if you're in financial difficulty, if you're in family difficulties, just pray, but don't be afraid to go out and make something happen. Don't sit and wait and say, woe, woe is me, woe is me. Go get it. Go get something done. Pray constantly, but be ready to move when you're directed to. And I do appreciate it. I hope this has made some kind of sense, and we got got kind of quick tonight on some stuff. I got a little bit behind at the end there, but next meeting's April 27th. I hope all of you can. Harold, your birthday? We'll have a little Egypt, the belly dancer here, just for you.